Yo, what's up guys, hope you guys are doing good. So today we are gonna see, what if Naruto saves Guren and she fell in love with him, part 1. Hope you'll enjoy this video. So before we start, please subscribe to our channel and like this video. So let's get into the video. Naruto felt his heart wrenched painfully in his chest, hearing Yukimaru scream her name. But it wasn't only the young boy's cries that spurred him into action. He was running before he even realized it. The cliff's edge shattered beneath the force of his jump as he attempted to reach her. The crystallized mass hit the water first, immediately sinking within. Naruto was close behind, propelling himself desperately towards Guren, but she was quickly disappearing from sight into the dark depths of the frigid lake. His lungs burned because in his frantic he failed to take a deep breath, much less over-oxygenize himself. Yet Naruto persisted, ignoring his own survival instincts and Kyuubi's derogatory remarks on his lack of self-preservation. Before he realized it, everything grew dark and it became difficult to differentiate direction. Only the slightest difference in the pitch of black allowed him to know which way was up, but Naruto was tempted, against his own safety, to dive down further. But it would be for naught. Try as he might, he could no longer see Guren, only sense her general direction. It was torturous, knowing she was still alive further below, but having no way of saving her. If you do not leave now, you will die. Kyuubi's words sounded out in his mind, as if they were his own. Typically, Naruto could suppress the beast enough to relegate even its words to the silence of the seal, but any loss in concentration or distress he experienced allowed for the beast to make its presence known. He ignored him all the same, despite knowing it was true. In truth, Naruto didn't know why he was so desperate to save the woman who at one point proudly proclaimed herself to be Orochimaru's disciple beyond his base instinct to preserve human life. Yet, something about the woman, a light in her eyes beneath all her darkness, it made him want to save her. But the pain grown, Naruto released a breath of air, realizing he'd run out of time. He could only hope she could hold on until he could return with more preparation. Take care of her. He was about to begin swimming towards the light when he heard a deep voice somehow call to him in the depths. He looked down to find himself face to face with Guren, encapsulated in her crystal. She appeared exhausted, but very much alive, with one eye open to regard him with tired surprise. Naruto didn't have the time to question any of it. Instead, he wrapped an arm around the crystal mass and began to swim as hard and as fast as possible. Yet, as the water around him brightened, his vision, beginning with his peripherals, began to darken. He was drowning. It was a horrifying fact Naruto was well aware of as he exhaled the last of his breath and began to inhale water into his burning lungs. But he persisted, pushing hard and in his desperation, drawing upon the Kyuubi's chakra briefly as he neared the surface. As the light of the surface reached its crescendo, so too did the black splotches in his vision, and just as the warmth of the surface touched his face, Naruto lost consciousness. Guren battled exhaustion as she pulled the unmoving young man to the beach, just enough to keep his head out of the water. She fell as she did so, feeling a rock tear painfully into her right knee, but she ignored it and the red pulled around them. Naruto. She desperately called his name, shaking him with no response. She pulled him further onto land where she immediately initiated chest compressions. She was horrified to see just how much water was expunged from his lungs, out of his mouth and nose. He felt so cold, and in her panic, Guren couldn't feel a pulse beneath her fingers. Once she finished nearly 30 compressions, she pressed her lips against his and breathed into him. "Wake up." Guren demanded breathlessly as she resumed her compressions, forcing more water out from his mouth. "You can't die. Not for me." After repeating the process a few times, Guren, in her frustration, hammered both her fists down onto his chest, cursing the idiotic young man for throwing his life away for hers. She didn't deserve it, and neither did he. "Naruto, please." The tears that pooled on her cheek had fallen onto his. Guren wiped them away, finding her thumb tracing one of the scars tenderly. She shut her eyes, unknowingly dropping more tears onto Naruto as she pressed her lips to his one more time. But the gasp, Naruto rolled onto his side, simultaneously trying to catch his breath while also expelling more water. It was a horrible sound, but Guren couldn't deny her immediate relief. Nor her exhaustion, falling almost immediately at his side. "Drowning kinda sucks," he groaned, his voice even more raspy than usual. "You're a fool," Guren said, looking away from him and shutting her eyes. "Yeah, I get that a lot," Naruto said following a tired chuckle. "But sometimes it works out." She looked over to find his beautiful blue eyes boring deeply into her own. Her breath hitched in her throat, seeing the sheer relief on his face as he smiled at her. He seemed genuinely happy to have saved her. "Why did you save me?" Guren had to ask. "Do I really need a reason to save anyone?" Naruto said with a sigh, as if this weren't the first time he was asked that. "But, I'm your enemy." Guren needed to know why, beyond his damned hero complex, why he deemed her life worthy enough to exchange for his own. "You said it yourself, are you?" 2 words, and the way they were uttered silenced Guren immediately. She didn't know what to say to that, only that in her heart, she truly hoped that wasn't true. Suddenly, what this Konoha shinobi thought of her concerned her greatly, but how was she supposed to explain that to him when she couldn't even reconcile it with herself? No, Guren. She gasped and then groaned when Yukimaru jumped onto her, hugging her tightly, and for the first time, Guren allowed herself to hug him back with a bright smile. This moment, unfortunately, was fleeting. Her hold on Yukimaru turned defensive, as she was surrounded by 9 Konoha shinobi in total, 3 of at least Jonin status. Even at full strength, she wouldn't be able to fight them all at once. Instinctively she looked over to Naruto, who was now on a knee, struggling to stand. "Hey guys," he greeted them casually. "Naruto, get away from her." One of the kunoichi of the group barked. It was a girl with pink hair and a voice Guren found grating. "Hold on now," he raised a hand, halting the advance of one of the men who was approaching them. The girl may have spoken, but Naruto's eyes were on the man with brown hair and a rather odd stoic expression. "They aren't the enemy anymore. You know that's not how it works, Naruto," another man, Kakashi of the Sharingan, she recognized, voiced. Oddly enough, he seemed sympathetic in his words. "She works for Orochimaru. We can't simply let her go. Big brother." Naruto seemed to flinch hearing Yukimaru's scared tone. He looked at the boy, smiling reassuringly, and then to Guren. "But she doesn't anymore," despite being a statement, his eyes were almost pleading. Seeing them, Guren felt a deep shame for ever having worshipped Orochimaru in the first place. "No," it was all she could say, finding her shame growing, leaving her unable to look him in the eyes any further. "No, not anymore. And she can prove this by coming with us," Kakashi said. "Will she be under arrest?" Naruto asked, moving to put himself in between herself, Yukimaru, and the rest of his countrymen. As much as she didn't want to end up a prisoner in a foreign land, Guren didn't want to burden Naruto either. She'd committed many atrocities, and if apprehended, would likely never experience her freedom again. Some selfish part of her wished she could experience the world through her new start change in perspective. To enjoy it with Yukimaru, Guren halted that line of thinking in order to focus on what was happening before her. "You already know the answer to that, Naruto," one of the older women said. "But Shizune, she helped me fight off Kabuto," he argued. "That has to count for something, right? And what if she tells us what she knows about Orochimaru and his bases? That'll help her. Why do you care so much?" The same girl from before her butted in, almost angrily. "She's the enemy. Or did you forget she almost killed Hinata?" Naruto seemed to flinch at this, and so too did Guren. Not because of her actions, although she wasn't altogether proud of them, but because of how it must have made her look before the young man. And again, she couldn't figure out why she put so much stock into it. "Hinata," Naruto uttered her name softly, and the girl herself seemed to squeak and blush. He truly looked conflicted by this, and Guren wasn't enthused to be the cause. "For what it's worth, I am sorry," she apologized slowly, to everyone on the surface, but strictly to Naruto in her mind. "I was under the impression I thought you all wanted to capture Yukimaru for his powers." "Exactly." Naruto continued to grasp at anything in his defense of her. Besides, if she really wanted to he seemed to think better of what he was going to say. "I just wanna know they'll be okay if they come with us." "You say that like they have a choice," the stoic man from before added more forcefully. "This is the reality of the world, Naruto. When you commit a crime, you must face judgment." "I know, but it's okay, Naruto, don't say his name so casually." The girl with pink hair marched forward with clenched fists. "Sakura, don't," Naruto warned, stepping in front of her. The girl, Sakura, appeared immensely surprised by his actions, then hurt, before finally settling on being angry. "What the hell are you doing, Naruto? Why are you protecting her so much?" "Because everyone deserves a second chance." Naruto argued back, looking to address the others more broadly. He immediately stopped speaking and looked back down at her. She was tricked by Orochimaru. It was obvious he was trying to respect her biggest secret, one she told him because for one reason or another, he was just so damn easy to speak with. But it was a secret she'd rather not share with everyone in attendance, so Guren found one more reason to favor the young man. "Oh please. You can't seriously be stupid enough to believe that," Sakura argued. "She's a little too old to say she was tricked, don't you think? She knows damn well what she was doing was wrong. She's not sorry because she means it, she's only sorry because she's caught." That irked Guren, especially the manner in which she spoke down to, not at, Naruto, but she kept her ire contained to a few choice words within her mind. "The same could be said for Sasuke," Naruto said, immediately silencing the girl's further argument. "Like him, Orochimaru got to her when she was little. I won't say more than that, but she's realized he was nothing but a manipulating asshole. Or do you think Sasuke doesn't deserve forgiveness either?" Of course she knew of Sasuke, her once competition to become Orochimaru's next host. Guren almost shivered in pure disgust at her previous devotion. It almost felt like a blind had been removed, opening her eyes to the type of person, if he could be considered that, the snake truly was. She had Yukimaru to thank for that, Naruto, as well. Are you seriously bringing him up to defend her? Sakura said with tears in her eyes. He seemed regretful at having done so. It's okay, Naruto, Guren said. She decided she wouldn't cause him any further pain if she could avoid it. I'll comply in any way I have to. And I know I have no right to ask anything else of you, but until everything is settled, do you mind watching over Yukimaru? Naruto, for some reason, didn't look enthused at what she'd said. Guren briefly wondered if asking him to care for another may have been too much. Of course I'll look after him, but Guren, are you sure? I can't promise you'll be. I don't know what they'll do. Naruto looked truly concerned for her. Their face and chest both felt incredibly warm then. Why do you keep implying they have a? Let them talk, Yamato, Kakashi said, placing a hand on the younger man's shoulder. But senpai, it's like Naruto said, they're not the enemy anymore, Kakashi said with a lazy wave of his hand. Come on then, everyone. Back to the cabin. We all need our rest. We'll head out first thing tomorrow. But what of them? Shizune asked. Naruto's got it handled, Kakashi said, smiling with his single visible eye. Don't you, Naruto? What is happening right now? Sakura looked livid. We can't seriously. That's an order, Kakashi's voice, which had just been carefree, broke no argument. From anyone. We'll be waiting for you. Thank you, sensei, Naruto bowed his head. With that, everyone followed after the man, with the exception of two. I just wanted to commend your youthfulness, Naruto. You are truly worthy of being my rival. A boy with two caterpillars above his eye said, offering a thumbs up and a smile that glinted even in the light of the setting sun. With that said, he sprinted after the group on his hands. What is he? I don't know, Naruto said tiredly. He looked over to the other straggler, the girl with pink hair. Sakura, I didn't mean to bring him up, but I hope you know what you're doing, Naruto. He watched her go with incredible sadness. Once they were all gone, a heavy awkward silence remained. Guren was about to apologize for the position she'd placed him in, but his next words halted any thoughts. You can go now, Naruto said without turning to face them. What? Guren failed to understand the meaning behind his words, despite hearing him clearly. Oh, Naruto said, finally turning to them with a dour expression. The both of you. Be free. Take care of each other. But won't that get you in trouble with your village's leadership? Guren continued to fail to understand why the young man before her was doing so much for a stranger at best and an enemy that very morning. Probably, Naruto admitted following a sorrowful sigh. But after everything you two have been through, you deserve to be happy. She felt numb hearing him speak. And, as much as she wanted to follow his command, an even greater part of her didn't. Guren could not comprehend why, but she didn't want to see any further harm befall him. Not when he'd already done so much for them in so little time. You should hurry, Naruto urged. It won't be long before they start wondering why I haven't returned with you too. Silently, Guren stood, finding it difficult to maintain her footing, but she pushed through the feeling of lightheaded exhaustion. Their eyes met where she saw nothing but resolution in his bright blues, and it only made her feel heavier. But there was no denying his words. Despite her every instinct, she knew what had to be done. Taking a hold of Yukimaru's hand, she began to pull him along. They'd made it all of a few paces before she felt the boy who had quickly become important to him pull himself free of her. I don't want to leave Naruto Nai, Yukimaru cried, literally doing so as he crashed into Naruto, hugging him tightly. Naruto looked incredibly conflicted, almost uncomfortable at the contact, but returned the hug reluctantly. Guren watched silently as he kneeled before the boy, placing his hands on his shoulder. Listen, Yukimaru, you have to be strong, he glanced in her direction. For you, and for her. Everything'll be okay now. He appeared reluctant to say more. No. Yukimaru denied as he hugged Naruto again, burying his head into his chest. I want to be with you and Guren forever. Naruto returned the embrace again, his eyes shutting tightly, tears falling from behind them. It seemed Yukimaru's affection was reciprocated. Her heart simultaneously raced and fell into the pit of her icy stomach at the sight. You have to go now, Naruto whispered, pulling back to ruffle his hair. But one day, I promise, we'll see each other again. Naruto seemed surprised seeing her limp towards them, and even more so when she placed a hand on his shoulder and the other on the boy's head. Guren. Let's go, he said, smiling, seeing both boys look confused. Before your friends think you let us go. He seemed to understand at once. I can't promise you'll be pardoned, Naruto whispered. You need to go. Maybe, Guren admitted. But I'm done running. Besides, I'll feel better if you're watching over Yukimaru until I can. She realized she was asking much of the young man, but she was resolute in his care of Yukimaru. She truly didn't know of anyone she would trust with his care more, not even herself. Are you sure this is what you want? Naruto asked, standing to meet her eyes. She smiled as she looked up at him. not really, no. But out here, on the run from Orochimaru and the many villages I've wronged, it's not the life I want for him. I'll protect you both. He shouted so abruptly he actually startled her. Especially after a moment of stunned silence, she truly wasn't expecting it. I promise, I'll do everything I can to make sure you'll both be happy. Guren once more felt her face grow warm, certain in that he likely didn't realize just how his words could be interpreted. She also knew she shouldn't interpret them that way, because he was likely being the person she was growing to understand. A kind young man. I'll hold you to it. She felt her world beginning to spin around her before turning on its side. Just in time for Naruto to catch her, hoisting her up into his arms once more. How many times does this happen? He asked with a tired but cheeky grin. Shut up. The trip back to the leaf was tense. Despite the colorful conversation he maintained with Yukimaru, describing his village, he could feel the eyes of most of his team on them. It likely didn't help the young boy insisted he hold both his and Guren's hands along the way. He risked a glance over his shoulder, confirming his senses. He, rather, was being observed closely by everyone with varying reactions. Kibble looked angry, Shino impassive, though it was always difficult to gauge his reaction from behind his glasses and high collar. Lee offered him another toothy grin and a thumbs up, with Ino similarly grinning at him, but differently. As per usual, Sai's obviously false smile put him on edge, while Tenten offered a look of uncertainty, similar to that of Shizune's. Yamato's death glare made him shiver, and Kakashi only offered him a closed-eye smile behind his favorite book. Hinata quickly looked away, but she seemed upset all the same. Sakura, out of everyone, looked to be the most perturbed by the sight they must have made. His sheepish smile was promptly returned with a frown, making him feel worse. Yet Naruto still believed what he was doing was right because it felt right. He couldn't ignore their feelings, nor could he pretend they were without reason, but he also couldn't ignore his own. Saving the two from Orochimaru and a life on the run felt right above all else. He felt conflicted for reasons he couldn't quite understand, but he was certain in this. This feeling was confirmed seeing Guren smile at him. It was the briefest of expressions, but it was a true tangible reassurance that what he was doing was right. And it felt right, warming his heart in a way he never felt before. They finally arrived at the leaf where they were promptly met with a small squadron of Anbu guards, their sole focus on the two new arrivals. Kakashi-sensei. Naruto instinctively stepped in front of the two. It's protocol, Naruto, Kakashi informed him calmly. As you know, the Hokage has been made aware of the situation, but we can't have them simply walking through our village unattended. They're not unattended, they're with me, Naruto said, not looking away from the caricatures of animal masks. You know that's not how this works, Kakashi was patient in his explanation. Besides, if anyone can convince the Hokage for leniency, it'll be you. Naruto once more glanced at the amassed team and realized his sensei was correct. None of his fellow Konoha shinobi seemed ready, much less willing to plead their case. We'll be okay, Guren assured him calmly. Yet the sweat on her brow gave her away. Yeah, you will be, Naruto silently promised. He kneeled down next to Yukimaru, who appeared incredibly anxious. I won't be long. Make sure you take care of Guren for me, yeah? The boy nodded, taking his request seriously. Can we at least make sure they get seen by a medic first? Naruto requested his sensei. That's part of the admissions process, Kakashi confirmed. And if it'll make you feel better, I'm sure Yamato wouldn't mind making sure our guests are treated properly. That did not make Naruto feel better. But on some level, he trusted the often horrifying man knowing deep down, he was a good person. Fine, Naruto stood. I'll catch up with you too soon. He watched him be led away, feeling a sense of urgency to speak with the Hokage. Tsunade Senju, on the other hand, did not seem too happy to see him. It didn't help that she'd requested to speak with him alone first. Why is it always something with you? It was not the greatest of greetings, nor the one he wanted to hear. She was agitated, that much was obvious. Naruto decided to dust off his diplomacy skills, knowing full well it was more than his own well-being at risk. Okage-sama, Naruto bowed his head. Don't, Tsunade filled her saucer to the brim, but somehow managed not to spill any on the way to her lips. That won't work with me. Not now. Naruto contained a semi-snide remark. She can help us find Orochimaru. Is that the only reason you're so dead set on helping the enemy? Tsunade questioned. She's not the enemy anymore, Naruto was quick to deny. Not to you, maybe, she was just as quick to respond. But your feelings hardly reflect the laws in place. She's committed genocide, Naruto. There's no other way to put it. It's a fact. She's wanted in many villages. How do you think it'll look like to the world if we were to simply pardon her? She was being influenced by Orochimaru, Naruto argued. It's not for me to say, but he's manipulated her since she was young. And I suppose she suddenly knows right from wrong. Tsunade pressed, uncaring. Don't tell me you actually believe that. I do, Naruto replied, resolute. Then you truly are naive, Tsunade poured herself another drink from her gorge. Even if you're right and she's somehow seen the error of her ways. Do you think that'll suffice for those she's killed? Will that bring back the souls she's eradicated for that snake? Naruto didn't understand why she was being so hostile towards him, and it was made worse knowing she was right. His feelings for the woman would be entirely different if she had been the one to have taken his parents from him or that of any of his friends. But he also couldn't ignore Yukimaru and his own forgiveness. He had to believe it meant something. You're right, his words seemed to surprise the woman. But I know I'm right too. I can't say why she should be forgiven or even that she should be, but I know she's changed. Yukimaru, he needs her. Please, all I'm asking is that she's given the chance to prove herself to everyone. Tsunade regarded him for a long while. Truly studying him in a way that almost made Naruto uncomfortable. It certainly made him nervous knowing she held all the cards. It was entirely up to her what happened to Guren and Yukimaru. It'll create an international nightmare, Tsunade sighed, taking to drink straight from the gorge this time. Damn it, Naruto. Why is it always you? He didn't know what to say, so he wisely chose to say nothing. You said you wanted to be Hokage, right? The question had to have been rhetorical, so he chose not to answer it either. Well, here's your first lesson in politics. Naruto couldn't help but feel concerned seeing her reach for another bottle from within her desk, indicating she'd already been working on her current one if she was already on a second. I'll pardon her, given her information proves to be useful to us, Tsunade began. Thank you, Hokage-sama, Naruto bowed again. I'm not done yet, she said firmly. There'll be consequences, one way or another. I can't simply pardon her, even if her information proves to be of use. Naruto didn't follow her contradiction. It'll take more than useful intel to buy her freedom, Tsunade said. It'll require a sacrifice on your end. Anything? Naruto was quick to answer. Are you sure about that? Tsunade questioned meaningfully. Even if it means your dream? This gave him pause, somehow knowing what she was alluding to immediately. Was he really ready to exchange his dream for Guren and Yukimaru? He was this much he knew. But not without question. To be Hokage was his dream, after all. Yes. Tsunade sighed heavily. What about your future? Again, Naruto was unsure of where she was going. Did she mean his dream of becoming Hokage? Surely she did, but he'd already acknowledged it. Yes. Being Hokage takes more than just being the strongest, Naruto, Tsunade said as she poured another saucer full, confusing him further by pushing it in his direction before retrieving another. You really should study policy as well. I'm willing to learn, Naruto said. Good, we'll get started on that soon, Tsunade indicated towards the saucer. Reluctantly, Naruto lifted the saucer, spilling some of its contents onto his fingers. He felt a queasy feeling in his stomach at the smell, remembering a certain celebration with Jiraiya, the hangover he felt the next morning more specifically. Your marriage, Tsunade said, taking a drink. Naruto almost drank alongside the toast, stopping just as the bitter liquid touched his lips. Say what now? If we're to pardon an enemy of many villages, we'll need more reason than just what use she'll be to us, Tsunade said with the beginnings of a slur to her voice. A marriage on the other hand to an up-and-coming shinobi may do it. Are you saying I have to marry Guren to save her? Naruto couldn't believe what he was hearing. That is exactly what I'm saying, Tsunade minced no words despite slurring them. I can't pardon this woman on her merits alone. But if she were to marry into one of Konoha's major clans, certain exceptions could be made. But consider this, Naruto. The optics surrounding your betrothal to her may very well affect your future chances at becoming Hokage. So I'll ask you again, are you willing to give up your dreams to save this woman? Naruto knocked back the sake, wincing and wondering how Tsunade and Jiraiya drank alcohol without so much as flinching. What did you mean by one of Konoha's major clans? A good question indeed, Tsunade smirked at him. One I'll be able to answer only upon meeting one of a few prerequisites. What prerequisites? Naruto asked, placing the saucer back on the table, grimacing seeing her refill it. And why can't you answer them without me meeting them? Laws in place before my ascension, Tsunade answered, leaning back in her seat. But laws I have to follow nevertheless. There's many things you don't know about yourself, Naruto. I suspect you already know this. Things I'm not allowed to reveal to you until you become a man. What do you mean by that? Naruto asked with eyes narrowed. I mean until you become of age, Tsunade replied evenly. To do so there are 3 prerequisites, to be specific. 1. When you turn 18. 2. When you become a jounin, or 3. You get married. Until you meet one of these requirements, I'm not allowed to reveal what I mean. Let me get this straight, Naruto no longer concealed his ire. I can go to war for this village, but I'm not considered an adult until I'm 18, or I get married. Or unless you're promoted, Tsunade added playfully. Her humor did not alleviate his mood. Quite the opposite, in fact. It angered him. Then promote me, Naruto said. Tsunade hummed. No. What do you mean, no? Naruto ground out. You have the strength of a jounin, don't get me wrong, Naruto. But you don't exactly conduct yourself to be the best, Tsunade explained bluntly. What the hell does that mean? Naruto continued to grow angrier as their conversation continued. That's exactly, Tsunade said, taking another drink. You're quick to anger, constantly disregard orders, and you try to bend the word of law when it benefits you. So tell me, Naruto. If you were in my position, if you were Hokage, would you promote you? No, he would not. It was hard to come to the conclusion, but he came to it nevertheless knowing she was right. I can change, Naruto said. Maybe, Tsunade relented. But, and I know how much your word means to you, believe me I do, I can't simply act on it alone to promote you. There are processes in place, others you have to convince in order for me to do so. Who knows what'll become of this woman in the meantime? Why does it feel like you're forcing my hand here? Naruto asked seriously. Because you're doing the same to me, Tsunade was suddenly serious. What you're asking me to do is not insignificant. It's not just your judgment on the line here, Naruto. What do you think will happen to me if I pardon her and you're proven wrong? Naruto was ashamed to admit it was not something he'd truly taken into consideration. I'm sorry, his head fell. Don't be, Tsunade said, her expression softening. I'd do that and more for you, Naruto. But there has to be some give and some take. There are consequences to all of our actions. I'm not above them, and neither are you. They fell silent for a time. So there's no way? Naruto asked. I can offer her as much leniency as possible, Tsunade said, finally setting the gorge down on the table with a resounding clank. But I simply can't promise her freedom. At most, I can save her from death, but no. There's no other way. So I'll leave the decision up to you, Naruto. And I'll ask you again, is she worth your dream? She was. They both were. But it was still asking much of both of them. Even if I agree, who says she would? Guren's choice in this matters too, Naruto said. Tsunade hummed again, shrugging her shoulders. I suppose so. It's only her life on the line. Her own future. If you're so sure of her change, it's the best I can do, Naruto. This I promise you. Naruto messily knocked back a second shot. I'll talk to her. I'll arrange it, Tsunade said, waving him away. I have Kakashi's report. I'll get your detailed one later. For now, you're dismissed. With that, he turned to leave. And Naruto, she said, stopping him in his tracks. He didn't turn to face her. Think about this. I mean really think about this before you make your decision. I think it'll be one of the most important ones you ever make. Naruto left without another word. To your marriage, Tsunade said, taking another swig, alone. And then another. And to your future. I truly hope you know what you're doing, Naruto. Naruto didn't have the face to return to Tsunade and ask exactly how he was supposed to find Guren and Yukimaru. He knew very little of Anbu beyond the fact they were a secretive and elite branch of Konoha's shinobi forces. If they had a main location within the village, it wasn't exactly common knowledge. It didn't help that he wasn't exactly in the right state of mind to speak with her any further then. Not when he had so much to say, so many questions to ask. Hearing her mention his lineage was something of a wake-up call to him. How many restless days and sleepless nights had he questioned who his parents were? Too many to recount, but enough for him to ask the third Hokage if he'd known anything, and in hindsight, of course he had. But Sarutobi Hiruzen never had a concrete answer for him, only obfuscations. He had been, however, curiously resolute in that they must have loved him dearly. It was a hope Naruto had grasped onto like a lifeline then, and even now, but it also alluded the man must have known the truth. Tsunade's words confirmed this. That, along with her ultimatum, was why Naruto was angry. Well, and truly so, in a way he hadn't experienced in some time. And what was for the first time in a very long time, he chose not to deny it nor hide it. All around people gave him a wide berth at the sight he must have made, stopping to stare when they were at what they deemed a safe distance. Naruto ignored them all as he made his way to the hospital, his one and only lead as to where they may be. If he didn't find them there he would track down Kakashi or any other jounin to ask. Fortunately, he encountered Yamato, or perhaps it was the man who'd sought him out, considering his abrupt appearance from an alley that didn't exactly lead anywhere. I presume you are looking for them? He said in greeting. Yes, Naruto answered simply. There was no mistaking who he was referring to. Yamato regarded him for a time, not a single emotion or thought betrayed in his dispassionate eyes. Follow me. Naruto did so silently. They've been revised and checked into holding. It was Yamato who initiated the conversation. They're in a holding cell together pending an interrogator for each. For each of them? Wait, are you saying Yukimaru is also under arrest? Naruto was indignant at hearing this. Yes, Yamato's response remained, as it always had, unfeeling. But he's just a kid. Naruto was quite the opposite of that. He appears to be the same age, if not a little younger than you when you first became a genin, Yamato said. Age means little for shinobi. Naruto could not pretend he did not understand his reasoning, but by no means did he agree with it. Interrogator. Are we gonna torture them too? We won't have to utilize more advanced means of interrogation so long as they remain compliant, Yamato continued evenly, as if they weren't speaking about employing such gruesome means on a child. It was in moments such as then Naruto was confronted with just how cruel their supposed civilization truly could be. It made his dream that much more important to him than for the childish means in which he used to see it, opening his eyes further to just how much of a fool he really was. It also made his decision that much imperative. Their decision, he had to remind himself. He couldn't imagine Guren, let alone any one woman would ever agree to marry him except under such circumstances. Sakura reminded him of this every time he tried to show his affection for her, and it was a further indictment of himself. Is something the matter, Naruto? Yamato asked. Naruto hadn't expected the question, not from the stoic man of all people. Plenty, Naruto admitted, but would go no further into detail beyond the obvious. You're talking about Guren and Yukimaru possibly being tortured like it doesn't matter. It's like I said, it's up to them, Yamato remained ever composed. It's the way it has to be. No. Naruto snapped, no longer able to contain himself. It's how it is, but not how it should be, or how it has to be. Yamato stopped to stare at him again with his unnerving expression, but this time, Naruto did not turn away. Their feelings nor that of any individual person are enough to change the reality of how things are. I do not say this to diminish your outlook or antagonize you, Naruto. This world is dangerous and can be cruel. If you learn nothing else from our training or your time as a shinobi, you must at least learn to accept it. After all, how can you aim to change that which you don't understand? Yamato said. I'm beginning to see that, Naruto replied honestly, but his feelings of frustration and incompetence did not diminish in the slightest. But neither had his conviction. But I'll change it. To his surprise, Yamato seemed pleased at hearing this, as expressed by the brief smile that, for once, finally reached his eyes. He only nodded before continuing on. Naruto was led through a twisting maze of side streets and alleys before reaching a nondescript building one could easily mistake for being abandoned. Within, a dusty old bookshelf slid aside to reveal a dark tunnel. The long tunnel, itself twisting and only faintly illuminated via spaced-out, dull yellow hanging lights, eventually led to a divergence of many other tunnels. Their trek was short thereafter, arriving at a room divided by a single pane of glass that looked into a room with only one bed, an unobscured toilet, and a tiled floor with a drain in the center, stained a stomach-dropping shade of red. On the bed was Guren, with Yukimaru sitting on her lap, sleeping in her protective embrace. Naruto approached the transparent partition slowly. Placing a hand on the cold glass, he was reminded why he was strongly considering wagering his future. Are they okay? Naruto asked quietly. Yamato understood what he was asking. The woman is, but as Shizune-san confirmed, the boy's chakra network is most likely irreparably damaged. He'd be fortunate to ever use it in any way beyond maintaining his body. Naruto's hands became fists at his side in yet another example of Orochimaru's evil. Can't Tsunade heal him? I do not know, Yamato answered simply. Naruto supposed he wasn't in any current standing to request that of her, but he would do so anyway. Can I see them? Naruto asked, knowing they couldn't see him considering Guren's nervous glances never once showed any sign of recognition when they passed over him. Before they're questioned. Okage-sama has allowed it, Yamato said. But keep in mind everything you say in there will be on official record. Yeah, Naruto figured as much. Very well then, Yamato pressed his hand to the door and it unlocked with a resounding metallic slam. Within, Guren jumped and held onto Yukimaru tighter. Naruto entered slowly and with a smile forced upon his face. Hey, he began awkwardly. Hey, she replied, just as awkwardly. He found he couldn't think of what to say to Guren now that she was before her. This would make it much more difficult to say what he had to say. Are you two doing okay? Are they treating you well? Naruto asked just as the door shut behind him. Guren looked around the room, an answer in itself. Better than I imagined, well, better than what I heard. Yeah, Naruto didn't know what to say to that either. Just when they come to talk to you, just make sure you tell them everything. I know, Guren nodded reluctantly. I will. Another heavy silence overtook them and he realized he could delay the inevitable no longer. So, I spoke to Tsue, the Hokage, Naruto neared them and was given pause when she looked over to the place near her on the bed and then back to him. He only hoped he'd interpreted her actions correctly as he took a seat beside her, but as far away as possible to afford her as much space as possible. This still couldn't have been more than a few inches between their shoulders. And Guren almost looked hopeful. She's willing to help out where she can, Naruto looked away, seeing her relief and its immensity. That's good, right? Guren seemed to take notice of his actions. Right. Yeah, Naruto palmed the back of his head as he studied the tiles. But there's a catch. When he finally built enough courage to look at her again, he found her face had fallen. Yeah? Guren repeated, leading. Yeah, Naruto confirmed, looking away once more. She can pardon you fully and you wouldn't be stuck in here, but you have to do something first. What is it, Naruto? The use of his name was intentional. Guren was growing impatient and he completely understood why. You have to, marry someone. Naruto immediately regretted not being direct, but he was nervous, scared if he was being honest, of her reaction. Of course. Naruto was forced to look at her hearing her dejected response. I should have known they'd make me pay with my body, she held on to Yukimaru tighter. So what noble am I being sold to? Who do I have to fuck so they don't kill us? Naruto grimaced hearing her speak. Her reaction, of course, was warranted. His fears had been realized, and what he feared more now was just how she would react once she knew. More importantly, he was afraid of how she would come to see him. Answer me. Guren demanded, doing so abruptly and with a ferocity that almost awoke Yukimaru. She seemed to take notice of this as well, her composure falling to that of resignation. Me? Naruto decided he could delay her hatred no longer. You'd have to marry me. Her initial response was that of surprise and then absolute betrayal. How could you? Guren's words were venom, infecting his heart immediately. I trusted I should have known there was a reason you were so nice. You never cared about me about us. All you wanted was a piece of ass. Someone who would finally touch such a ridiculous example of a shinobi like you. Naruto stood and moved towards the door, unable to show his face to her. And he couldn't because there were already tears building in his eyes, feeling her words tear him apart. Her anger revealed how she truly felt about him. What was worse was that her words were a mirror to his own behavior. It wasn't my choice, Naruto said. It was yours. You don't have to. I asked. It's not much of a choice when the alternative is this. Guren fully shouted at him. Ask for anything the Hokage could do. Naruto's head fell, and so too did a single tear, but he stepped on it. She said she'd do everything she could if you don't accept, but it doesn't look good. It also depends on how useful your information is. Of course it does. Guren continued, her anger untamed. That's all you wanted, wasn't it? For a way to find your precious friend in exchange for our lives. You're just as evil, just as vile, as they said your village was. Guren. Yukimaru was now awake and sounded afraid. Fuck you, Uzumaki Naruto. I knew I should have killed you when I had the chance. Guren spat, heedless of anything and anyone. I hate you. Naruto's hand was on the door, melding the steel handle around his fingers without realizing it. Think about it, he said, leaving, unable to face her again. As the door shut behind him, Yamato's hand was on his shoulder, but Naruto couldn't face him either. I want to leave, he said simply, shaking his hand. Very well. Naruto returned directly to his lonely apartment and, as soon as he shut the door, his composure broke fully. He fell to his knees, but he didn't cry. Instead he released all his emotions in a single shot that shook the windows and a fist that shattered the floor. The rest of the night was a blur. He didn't know if he'd even slept, only that when he blinked, it was already morning and someone was knocking on his door. He was tempted to ignore whoever it may have been, but sometime in a long night of self-reflection, he'd come to a decision. One that would finally see him shedding his every weakness. A necessary step in changing the cruel, unfair world in which he lived. He had not been expecting Jiraiya. His sensei had been grinning ear to ear until he took a full look at him and then his expression became concerned. Naruto. What do you want, old man? Naruto was too tired to conceal himself with the smile he'd practiced for so long. A smile he didn't usually have to force around one of the few people his revised outlook retained as truly precious to him. I take it your talk with this Guren woman didn't go too well. Of course Jiraiya was informed and aware of what was happening to him. It seemed everyone knew more about him than even himself. Jiraiya was undoubtedly included amongst these people, and that hurt him further. It also angered him, an emotion he realized he was becoming all too familiar with. Jiraiya must have known who his parents were, but he would refrain from questioning him for the moment lest he lost the last of his teetering composure, lest he said something he'd come to regret. No, it didn't, Naruto said. What do you want? Jiraiya frowned at being presented with the question. Well, I came too. He seemed to consider what he was about to say, something the boisterous man didn't do often during their 3 years of travel. I came to see how you were doing. Tsunade told me everything. Can't be an easy choice. Yeah well, it's not like she gave me much of a choice, he muttered, leading the man inside. His sensei took note of the damage to the floor as he stepped over it with some concern. Naruto took a seat on his old sofa, but Jiraiya remained standing. And it really isn't mine to make. It's hers. Jiraiya chortled, smiling again. Oh, it definitely is. But considering you don't think it is an indicator in and of itself. What the hell are you talking about, old man? Naruto had no patience for small talk, much less cryptic talk. I'm saying you've clearly already made your choice. Jiraiya allowed himself to fall roughly next to Naruto, throwing an arm around his shoulder, his smile turning proud. You've decided to stake everything on saving those two. Don't think that doesn't mean anything. Naruto tried to shake away his arm, but the man's hold remained firm. It doesn't when she looks at me like I'm a monster. And I don't blame her. I've put her in a position where she loses her freedom either way. Don't sell yourself short, kid, Jiraiya spoke affectionately. Sure, the situation isn't what anyone with good intentions would claim to be favorable, but you're acting like it's a bad thing. It's not. He snapped, and it wasn't a question. Sensei, Guren would be forced to marry me. Me? How the hell is that not a bad thing? Well, I admit, you're not quite as handsome as me, but Jiraiya began, but quickly changed his tune seeing Naruto's face. But tell me, Naruto, do you intend on forcing yourself onto her? Naruto shook himself free and stood, taking a step back, feeling his stomach drop further. Do you think I would? His answer could break him. Despite feeling incredibly angry at the man, if Jiraiya believed so, then it would mean he was truly a failure of a person. I know you wouldn't, Jiraiya continued to smile at him. That's what I'm getting at, kid. And it's what I need you to understand. This left Naruto speechless because he truly didn't understand. It's like I said, Jiraiya continued. It's a shit situation, no two ways about it, and I really am sorry you have to go through it, but consider this, Naruto. Is there anyone you trust with the task of marrying this girl? Yes and no. Naruto could think of a few people from clans he hoped wouldn't force Guren to do anything she didn't want to do, but none he could honestly trust to take care of her, and Yukimaru. None wanted to take that responsibility from him. Because their safety and well-being was a responsibility that belonged to him alone. Like a switch flipping in his mind, he understood completely. Yet it brought him no peace. But she hates me now, Naruto could feel himself growing emotional again, and his words reflected it. Guren thinks I'm a monster, sensei. I hate it. I don't want her to see me that way. I only wanted to protect her. And you've done everything you could, Jiraiya replied sympathetically. Short of raising the village for her freedom, there's nothing else you could have done. Believe me, Naruto, I wished it could be different, but it's not. Now I can't say exactly what you see in those two, but I know enough about you to trust your judgment. If you think they're worth fighting for, then fight for them. Don't let your situation get the better of you. Change it, make it work in your favor. How am I supposed to do that? She hates me, Naruto repeated. I don't know what to do anymore. I imagine you've already proven yourself to them once if they decided to follow you into enemy territory. So then do it again, Jiraiya offered, standing, as well. It won't be that easy, Naruto denied. Does anything worthwhile ever come easy? Jiraiya questioned. Look kid, I'm not saying you have to love her or make her love you. But you can at least prove to her you're not who she thinks you are. And besides, marriages end all the time. Just hurry up and become Hokage, and then you can split with this woman, and you'd be free to pursue that little pink-haired thing you've always been after. Fuck you, despite his words, there was a smile on his face. Since when do you curse? Jiraiya obviously didn't take any offense to his words, grinning once more. But I'm glad I've finally gotten through to you. Yak no, it's not an easy thing to do. Don't make me repeat myself, Naruto laughed, wiping away at his face. But sensei, a favor. Anything, kid, Jiraiya said. Train me. Hey, what the hell do you think I've been trying to do these past 3 years? It was hard enough to convince Tsunade the first time, what makes you think I can do it again? Especially not with you getting married. Jiraiya said with faux indignation. That's not what I mean, Naruto sighed. And it's not a sure thing. What I mean is I want to become a shinobi. A true shinobi, I mean. I want to learn more than just how to control the Kyuubi, or even more. Who are you, and what have you done with Naruto? Jiraiya jested. I'm serious, sensei. I'm starting to realize I haven't been taking my training as seriously as I should have. It was difficult to admit, but it was true nevertheless. I have to get stronger if I want to become Hokage. Any levity fell away from Jiraiya then. You know there's more to becoming Hokage than just being the strongest shinobi. Tsunade had said the same. I know that, Naruto said, just as seriously. At least I do now. And I mean it, sensei. I still want to save Sasuke, and I still want to become Hokage, but I can't do that if everyone sees me as some sort of joke. You know you don't have to change who you are to grow, Naruto, Jiraiya offered empathetically. I know that, sensei, and I'm not. But you can't tell me I'm mature enough to become Hokage, as I am now, Naruto said. Jiraiya chortled again before abruptly throwing an arm around his shoulder, pulling him into a semi-hug, ruffling his hair. No, you're not, Naruto. But I believe you've just taken your first important step to becoming the man I know you can be. I really am proud of you. Naruto thought then, as he had on more than one occasion, that what he was currently feeling must have been what most felt when sharing a moment with their father. In the absence of his own, it was how he truly felt for Jiraiya. He only regretted not being strong enough to let him know. Guren felt exhausted and sleep-deprived after her last round of interrogation, which had lasted hours and consisted of many of the same questions reworded. Just how much time had eclipsed since arriving to Konoha was difficult to decipher in a room with blaring lights which never shut off or dimmed. She'd been honest and held nothing back. Not only because her future and Yukimaru's depended on it, but out of her sheer hatred for the men who had placed her in her current predicament. But there was none she hated more than herself for believing in Naruto. It also proved to reinforce her own belief that there was only one person in the world she could trust, and that was the boy she was trying to protect. Because Naruto proved she couldn't even trust her own judgment. Her very heart had betrayed her. But he had just been so very convincing. The way in which he disregarded his own life to save hers, only to attempt to take it in another way. Because what was life without freedom? And there would be no freedom in being forced to be with one she didn't love. It was a childish notion, to be certain, and one she thought to have buried, but one that resurfaced and persisted from her youth. Out of marriage and its sanctity. There wasn't much Guren remembered of her mother, not even the sound of her voice remained. But she did remember her words regarding the love she was one day to find, and how she was supposed to give herself only to the one who would come to love her enough for the privilege, and one she loved equally. It was a ridiculous and antiquated notion, to be sure, but it was one she couldn't shake no matter how she tried to now. And it was for this very reason she hated Uzumaki Naruto so much, and why she hated herself even more knowing that wasn't true. Because she didn't actually hate Naruto. It was something she tried so hard to convince herself of, and something she had told him, but it wasn't true. She simply couldn't understand why. "We're done for the day," Yamato said. The man from Naruto's group, she learned, was a high-ranking member of Konoha's Anbu forces. What position that may have been, she truly didn't care. All that mattered was how everyone, even her crude female interrogator, seemed to hold him in high regard. It would not bode well for her to antagonize him or anyone else for the time being. "Your terms of surrender," he presented to her a thick stack of papers and a single pen, purposefully dulled so as not to be used as a weapon. "I suggest you read every stipulation carefully before signing or choosing otherwise. I'm already your prisoner. Don't pretend I have a choice." Despite her own reasoning, Guren couldn't help herself. "You do have a choice, believe it or not," Yamato said, allowing the papers to fall uncaringly at her side when she didn't accept them. "Where's Yukimaru?" Guren asked again. Her previous interrogator didn't answer her, and she wasn't expecting one from him. But she had to know one way or another. "He's being well taken care of, I assure you." Yamato didn't seem to care one way or another. At Naruto's behest. She frowned hearing this because of his assurances, nor did that blonde bastard's mean a thing to her. "I want to see him," Guren demanded, knowing full well she was in no position to do so. "You will soon," Yamato answered impassively. "Depending on what you decide, that is. Agree to the terms, and he will be released once your interrogation concludes. Under strict restrictions, you'll discover if you read the terms. However, if you decline, you will remain under arrest." "And Yukimaru? What happens to him if I don't sell myself?" Guren questioned bitterly. Ending his own interrogation, if he proves to be innocent within reason, he will likely be released to the village's orphanage, unless someone agrees to take him in, Yamato informs her. If within 6 months, he's not adopted, he'll be deported to his native village. Guren felt her stomach drop hearing this. Considering she'd all but eradicated that village, he'd have nothing to return to. "And if I agree?" she asked, more reserved this time. A fragment of frustration made its way onto his face. "It's all stipulated in the paperwork, but for the sake of expediting this, you'll both be under Naruto's care." "In what way?" Guren persisted against her better judgment. Yamato didn't answer immediately, and she could clearly see she was quickly burning through her already thin patience. "Again, it is in the agreement, but officially, you'd be his lawful wife, and he your official child." This gave Guren pause of her own. "You mean I'd be his mother, and Naruto would be his father?" She hated how her own voice waned near the end. "Officially, yes," Yamato said. Guren decided not to press her already questionable luck and began to read through the terms herself, stopping when he spoke once more. "You have 1 hour to read through and decide if you'll choose if you're to accept," Yamato said and abruptly turned to leave. He stopped at the doorway, just as Naruto had. "I doubt it matters, but you should know it really wasn't his decision. This really is the only way, is it?" Guren questioned in one final act of defiance. "Yes. And for some reason, Naruto truly vouched for your freedom before knowing the conditions himself, and even after. He doesn't want this any more than you, and like you, he seems to believe he has no choice in the matter. But you both do." He turned to her with a truly horrifying expression. "Personally, I don't see what he does in regards to you both. If it were up to me, you would never see the light of day again for your crimes. In fact, I would be calling for your very execution. And I am not alone in this. But for some reason or another, Naruto deemed you worthy enough to throw away his dream. I suggest you not take this lightly." "His dream?" Guren felt her heart twist in her chest again. She truly didn't believe he was deceiving her then, his hatred of her was too apparent to think otherwise. But even so, she could never be sure. Although some traitorous part of her almost hoped he really was telling the truth. But at what cost? Hey! She shouted after seeing him leaving. What dream? She had to know. He wants to be Hokage. But that, she was alone again with the most dangerous thing of all. Her thoughts. He wants to be Hokage. Naruto was disappointed to discover that, beyond some instructional scrolls, his sensei couldn't actually train him. At least not as extensively as before. But the Akatsuki beginning to make their move, Jiraiya would be far too busy maintaining his intelligence network to devote any meaningful time to further training him. And he couldn't exactly follow him into enemy territory, considering the risk he would be placed in. As much as Naruto didn't want to accept this reasoning, he did accept and understand it. Finally he did. Because it wouldn't only be his life at stake should he be captured. With the Kyuubi in their possession, the most powerful of all tailed beasts, the terrorist organization would have free rein to do whatever it was they sought to do should he be captured. Death and destruction would one day reach their doorstep should this happen, throwing not only his life away, but that of his precious ones. Jiraiya, however, did offer a replacement in his stead, and it wasn't exactly who he ever expected. "Ah, there you are, Naruto-kun." He was startled out of his thoughts by a boisterous voice. Might Guy had arrived at Team 7's old training ground now populated by two. "Guy-sensei," Naruto returned the greeting respectfully and with a muted smile. "I want to start by thanking you for agreeing to train me." "Think nothing of it." Guy presented him with a thumbs up and a glinting smile. "Imagine my surprise when the great Jiraiya-sama approached me to train you. However, Naruto-kun, do not think for one second I'm only doing this for him. It would be an honor to train you, my rival's student and my own student's very own rival." "Yaha." Naruto's sigh was covertly released in the form of a single nasal exhale. "I mean, oh yeah, cool. Great. Thanks again, Guy-sensei," he finished with a sheepish chuckle. "Now, before we begin, Jiraiya-sama did not inform me of what you aim to learn from me. So I'll ask you this, Naruto-kun, what is it you seek to learn?" Guy asked, all levity from him now gone. His thick eyebrows furled as he studied him clearly. Any deception or obfuscation would only prove to be detrimental in the face of who, at the end of the day, was a Konoha shinobi. That of Jounin status. Well, despite this acknowledgement, Naruto wasn't exactly willing to share his own recently accepted shortcomings. "I've recently realized there's more to being a shinobi than just flashy." "Too true, my young friend." Guy agreed proudly. It was a step in the right direction. "Right," Naruto's lips thinned. "I trained in the old man's I trained in Jiraiya's own fighting style, but I know I have to find my own. What works best for me. I've never been one for weapons, so if my ever fails me, I know I'll only have my fists to fall back on." I erupted in sudden boisterous laughter. "Yes. As expected of my rival's student. Very astute, Naruto-kun, very astute. It's a shame not everyone is of like mind." "Yeah," Naruto agreed. "But that's not all. I have to get stronger, and I don't just mean by knowing how to fight. I need to strengthen my body if I'm supposed to better control my chakra." "Another great point." Guy seemed to almost be radiating with excitement and maybe even pride, and this only encouraged Naruto further. "But more importantly of all, I want to be able to protect everyone. And if I want to do that, I have to be better," he bowed before the man. "So I'll ask again, please train me, Guy-sensei." How absolutely youthful. Guy was positively grinning with twin thumbs up to match. "I must admit, I regret that we don't know each other as much as we should, but it would be an absolute honor to train you. So let us begin." Naruto watched the man disappear in a trailing cloud of dust. "Our first lesson will be to improve your stamina." Guy's words somehow carried despite the growing distance, but it was fleeting, leaving him no choice but to follow after the man. What preceded was a long day of chasing the boisterous shinobi in a dead sprint, only taking breaks in the form of hundreds of push-ups, sit-ups, and a few other core strength building exercises. After everything was done, Naruto was left absolutely exhausted and drenched in sweat. An eye-opening experience, for certain, because he'd never considered himself lacking in stamina. Even then, as he was lying in the very field in which they started, he couldn't seem to catch his breath. "Very impressive, Naruto-kun." Guy was standing over him, with not a single drop of perspiration visible on his face. "But you've currently got a ways to go. So allow me to give you this." Naruto looked at a bundle of orange sweatbands held in his hands. "I'll wear something lighter next time," he said, all while seriously considering his choice in clothing. Not only wasn't it exactly discreet, but his outfit wasn't entirely conducive to Fire Country's hot and humid environment. "Quite the opposite, Naruto-kun," he said, dropping the bundle into his outstretched hand. "Oh shit." Naruto's hand dropped down beside him, becoming buried within the very earth beneath the immense weight. "I'll ignore such an unyouthful choice in words because I know just how excited you are for our training sessions," Guy said, his smile never once faltering. Wear these from now on, and you'll find yourself growing stronger in no time at all. Naruto then recalled witnessing Lee remove such restraints in his fight with Gaara and just how much he'd wanted his own pair after seeing the impressive display of combat that followed. Though he'd since forgotten about it with just how fast everything seemed to happen shortly thereafter. Do you wear these every day? Naruto asked semi-nervously. Even when you're not training? Of course not. Guy laughed with his hands on his hips. Oh thank God, Naruto sighed in relief. For training purposes, certainly, but he couldn't exactly envision himself wearing them at all times. In fact, he found he couldn't even lift his arm for how heavy they were and for how exhausted his arms already were. It was slightly concerning. Those are only entry-level weights. Guy continued, shattering this illusion. The weights Lee wears are currently 5 times as heavy as those, while mine are at least 10 times that. And they are to be worn at all times, even when you sleep. Sure, why not? Naruto shut his eyes. He almost regretted having asked such a beast of a man for training. Almost. I have a mission tomorrow, but my student should be free to continue with your training. Guy offered him another thumbs up. I'll go over your regiment with him so that he may fill in on any days I'm busy. Sounds good, Naruto weakly returned the thumbs up with his free hand. Thanks again, Guy-sensei, for everything. Anytime, my youthful young friend. Guy's teeth almost blinded him then. I look forward to working with you from now on. And with that, he was gone, leaving Naruto trapped beneath the weights. What have I gotten myself into? Naruto asked, slamming his head against the grass at his back. Thanks for watching my video, leave a like if you enjoyed my video, and also do consider subscribing to my channel for more awesome content. See you next time, till then sayonara.